My name is Jamie Norman. I'm from a company called RedEye. We're based in the UK. RedEye is a marketing automation business and predominantly in the retail sector. So we have a lot of retail clients, travel clients. And RedEye was basically born in the turn of the millennium. And if RedEye was a person, that would make it it's got post-millennial Generation Z, Generation Z. We were founded as a web analytics business. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a timeline, a bit of context around our transition into where we are now, what we do, and our Looker journey. So we started as a web analytics business at the turn of the millennium, and then a company called Google came along. You might have heard of them, and that kind of forced us to change our business model. So we switched to email analytics and then became a pure ESP provider. So it was quite a switch for our business. And then we were one of the first companies in the UK, or rather our current CEO holds the dubious honour of being the first person to deliver abandoned cart programs into the UK market. And that evolved into very much a marketing automation solution as the market matured. But the product was very much a set of internal tools for our own business. We were very much operating an agency model. And I was brought in 2014 to kind of build a product team to transition from this internal set of tools that were very service-focused into something that was more of a SaaS product. And then along came a point in 2015 where we needed to replace our reporting suite, and that's when Looker came along. And I'm going to just put this in the context of our journey into using Looker, specifically how we've used Looker as powered by Looker as a set of embedded tools, so that we've built it into our product Contour. And part of that story involves how we've embedded the product in terms of our other data side, in terms of some predictive analytics, and how we've added other elements of data into the mix. So the challenge that we had at the time that we went to choose Looker was we had a proprietary reporting suite. There were limitations in terms of data volumes. Our performance was creaking under the new scale of data that we were being exposed to. And it looked like a product that was 15 years old, mostly because it was. Our underlying database was Oracle. So we were having to be very selective about the data we made available to report on. So we were using summary tables. We were having to invoke lots of archiving, basically trying to work with the limitations of that database. So it's very good in terms of the history of the business and where we came from in terms of pulling together all this transactional information, but it was just not fit for purpose in terms of analytics. So along came Looker. The brief we had at the time was we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We didn't want to continue this path we were going down in terms of a proprietary reporting product. So we went to the market. Looker was obviously one of the products we looked at. And the brief was basically that we didn't just want prettier charts. There was a lot of call within the business just to make it look nicer. But we wanted to do a lot more than that. It was a good opportunity to kind of really step up our game in terms of analytics. A lot of the original tool was around campaign reporting. So a lot of the email automation programs that were being run, essentially it was kind of rear view mirror campaign level reporting. We wanted to kind of really develop that because we were gathering a lot of data from web behavior, various data feeds, interactions with all the digital channels that we were implementing through the tool. So there was a much bigger opportunity. We wanted to go for a radical transformation to build the platform around. So, like I say, more than just replacing one reporting suite with another. And we wanted to make use of this greater amount of data more readily available and have a much more actionable insight. And then the big part of this was how could we leverage a tool for some competitive advantage? So how could we make something more than just presenting people the data back to them? How could we just add layers of value to that? First, I'm just going to give some context into how we felt the market changed and how people's expectations around data have evolved. So we've all seen a greater level of, from a consumer perspective, of data all around us, whether it's controlling our home, whether it's smartwatches, analysing all of our activity, our sleep, everything about us. The general consumer perception of data is elevated massively. And this has kind of transitioned into perceptions within business as well. So our retail clients that will want to have a lot more detail about their business, these expectations have risen incredibly. A lot of you will be familiar with Strava. This is my profile. Something that resonated with me was how something from, I cycle to work, so something from a simple commute, which is about a 6-mile journey into the office, became much different when data was layered on top. So rather than just I get from A to B, it becomes more of a challenge. So this kind of gamification of my journey to work has kind of really changed how I kind of see my ride. If there's any cyclists in the audience, I'm going to skip that so you don't judge me too closely on that one. Sticking with Strava for a minute, this is a guy called Scott. This is a result of Scott's run. He is the fastest person to complete the Boston Marathon on Strava, fastest Strava user to complete the Boston Marathon. What this kind of shows in terms of the transition of data availability is the fact that me as an amateur runner, cyclist, whatever, can see the results of an elite athlete. Whether I can match the performance is something completely different, but the way that's democratized data in the consumer sphere has kind of really, like I say, elevated the accessibility of data and people's expectations. About the first half of this presentation is kind of context setting, and then the second half I'm going to talk very specifically about the experience we've had and how we've deployed Looker in an embedded context. A key part of that is this, sticking with this theme, is this transition from data versus insights. So what we're very keen on is not the fact that we're just pulling together all this data and just presenting it back to people. It's how can we layer an element of insight onto that and make it more useful and actionable for people. We didn't just want to introduce an unwieldy data tool without adding that extra value. A good example of this is I gave a presentation to our customers. It was on the commemoration of the D-Day landings earlier in June this year. And I used this example to make this point. So during World War II, the Centre for Naval Analysis would look at all the returning planes coming back from missions. And they would create schematics of the planes in terms of where the damage was. And the outcome of this was they would look at where to put the armour on the planes to give them a better chance of surviving missions. So the logical conclusion was to where the greater damage was seen, that was where they wanted to place the armour. There's a statistician, a guy called Abraham Wald, who basically flipped that on its head and basically said, you want to put the armour where the damage isn't, because that's where the planes are being hit that aren't coming back. And this had a transformative effect on the future success of missions during the war. I'm going to continue this theme on a slightly more light-hearted note in terms of this idea of causation and correlation. A bit of a pop quiz. I don't know if you can all see this chart. There's a correlation chart here of the divorce rate in Maine, and it has a 99.26 correlation with something else. Does anyone want to hazard a guess what that might be? Correct. All right. Someone's seen my presentation before. It's the per capita consumption of margarine. Okay. I've got 2 more of these. Yeah, you might want to keep quiet. This is the total revenue generated by arcades. And this has a slightly lower correlation, but it's still pretty close. Anyone want to have a guess at what this might be? LPA, misery. It's the computer science doctorates awarded in the US. I've got one more example. Letters in the winning word of Script's National Spelling Bee. Again, slightly lower, but you can see the trends quite close there. It's the number of people killed by venomous spiders. So we use these examples with our customers to kind of help them understand that just having the data alone doesn't tell you the full story. It's quite a good example, quite a good way of doing that. And that leads into this idea that everything starts with a question. So where we decided to go in terms of how we add value in terms of embedding Looker within Contour is this idea that if you're exploring data, exploration is always easier when you have a map. And we want to provide that map to our customers. So we're trying to create a more curated data experience as opposed to, here's all your data, there you go. It performs well and it doesn't add anything. It's almost like we've got more data than ever before. We're kind of drowning in it, but we're as thirsty as ever. So this is where the idea that we take this experience that we have as a business where we've got this agency model. There's a lot of expertise in the business in terms of understanding the marketing space, digital marketing, the behaviors of our customers on the web via digital channels. But how can we use our expertise to kind of bake that into the product so it's not just giving people raw data? And this resonates with something that I ripped off from Frank Bien from previous joint events, is this idea of data breadlines. And we see this very often with clients that we're onboarding, where they've got these challenges of to get their data, they need to go to an IT team or a set of analysts, make a request or ask the questions they think they want to answer, wait probably up to a few weeks to get that back, realize it doesn't quite answer what they wanted or it raises other questions, and then this cycle continues, and every time they go back the queue gets longer because other parts of the business have the same kind of questions or slightly different questions, and it causes a real challenge in terms of just getting the data that they own. This has a lot of parallels with this notion of data chaos. So we find this a lot where different parts of the business have different views on the data. They might have their own version of the truth. So we've tried to create this single customer view where all this data we're collecting from the source, people can trust in terms of how we pull that together and make it accessible and usable within Contour. So going back to the question, how we framed this is almost creating different levels of presenting the data and mapping these to personas within the business. So if you take a view of a business's data, we've kind of got three different layers. So you've got the business view, the overarching view. What is the shape of the health of our business? How are we performing against these kind of top-level KPIs, OKRs? Kind of things that the C-suite would be interested in. So we're kind of packaging these views for that audience. So when I present what we've done, I'm going to kind of go through these layers to show how we've kind of presented this back to them. Then we have what we call a segment level view. So what does the business look like in terms of the sub-segments of customers, and where are the opportunities in the data in terms of similar looking customers? And then something that Looker gives us that we couldn't get before in Oracle was this person level view, this row level view of the data. So when we were using Oracle, we had to almost cheat a little bit to present things back. So we would summarize the data, we'd have to aggregate a lot of things, and we were second guessing what people wanted to know. So we were using our expertise to create a view of what we thought people would be interested in or be useful, and just using our experience to do that. But what Looker gives us is the fact we don't have to second guess that anymore. So we can still curate the experience in terms of using that to present this back to them, but that's just now a jumping off point for them to do their own exploration. So this will probably look quite familiar. We haven't done a great deal in terms of the presentation of Looker within Contour. It's embedded, basically it's iframed into Contour. And This is the first demo of Looker you'll see where I just use my mind to control it. So if those of you that can't see that, this is the business level view. So this is what we call the database summary. So this is the size of the database. This is the things that the C-suite want to know about their business in a typical environment. So how many customers do they have? How many people are opted into digital channels? What's the makeup in terms of demographics and geographic information? Those kind of high-level views that just give them this kind of presentation of the state of the business. And for those people, they generally wouldn't go any further than this beyond doing some basic filtering or just reviewing of those views of the data. And because we have a lot of clients, they're in a similar space in terms of retail, but they all do very different things. But we've created this in a way that kind of crosses all those different markets and subsectors. So they're all interested in how many people repeat purchase, how many people purchase online versus in a store, how their revenue breaks down, and then adding a layer of detail in terms of some of the campaigns they're running. So an abandoned cart program is pretty popular across the board, but we'll be looking at how their average basket value maps to the conversion rate of those abandoned basket programs, things like that. So these are just high-level views in terms of the performance of their marketing, basically. So taking that a step further, what we wanted to do is expand the use of data, so it's the start of a conversation. So we wanted to take the data out of Contour and put it into the hands of people in an environment that's more familiar with them. Not everybody within a client of ours will actually use Contour itself every day. So we've basically made it easy. We're only using like standard Looker functionality, but things like sending a dashboard or a view of a dashboard to places outside of the tool. This is an example of sending it to Slack. And our clients like the fact that you can see the output of this in exactly the same way as you would if you're looking at it within the product. And this is used to start this conversation and really kind of opens up the use of the data outside of the platform. And this is the thing that clients seem to love the most, that they can really expand the reach of data and insights from the product. So getting into the exploration piece, we have a lot of clients that were very reticent about the explore side of things, and we had a lot of debate internally around how we presented that. The fact that you can explore from here all of your tiles and dashboards is quite a powerful thing, but getting people on board with the idea that suddenly they're given this scary kind of analytics tool, we really had to lower the barriers of clients for that. So we've created some really simple examples to basically walk them through, explores. So even with some of our internal teams, they struggled, despite the fact that they've been working with our proprietary reporting suite. They know our data inside out. They're extracting it. They're using Excel, but even with some of them, explaining some of the basic ideas like pivoting data, understanding dimensions and measures, really what we thought was we almost kind of glossed over it. We had to take a big step back and bring people on board. So we had to create some really kind of simple examples to sort of walk people through the process. We've done this in a kind of a sandboxed demo environment where people feel more comfortable. They're not going to break it. They're not going to do any damage to the data. And some really simple examples to show how they can start with, a custom account, break it down by something really simple like gender, play with the charts, make it more on brand, all those kind of things that just kind of give them the confidence. And that was quite a learning curve for us in terms of embedding it, because we were like way over here and hadn't quite realised that we needed to bring people along with us, and that included some of our own people. So that was a challenge in itself. I'm going to jump to the segment level view. We introduced a new tool which in 2018 introduced predictive analytics. So we built these models which all mapped to points in the customer journey. So rather than just build some predictive models, We map these from, on the left you'll see probability of someone making a purchase in the next 30 days to the probability of making a second purchase, then VIP, moving on to predictive lifetime value, probability of lapsing and unsubscribing, particularly this is in terms of digital channels. So we've found this a really powerful tool in terms of mapping that to something that clients understand. They're working on kind of moving people along the journey and stopping the churn. So we try to integrate this with how we've introduced Looker. So we built a customer lifetime value dashboard to support this. So I'll explain some of the highlights from this. So we've got things like average customer lifetime value. We've broken that down into kind of online, offline, which is important to our clients. We've been looking at how the predicted lifetime value comes into effect, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about that in a minute. And we've kind of added some other layers onto that, which people find useful. So we've added lifestyle profile data. Some of this is similar to things you might have seen in data blocks, but the data blocks are quite US-centric, so we've struggled with that. So we've kind of almost had to build our own version of that and introduce that into the product. And the further you go down, the more kind of detailed this gets. So it goes down to a product level view in terms of trending products, showing the most popular products that this is a demo client, but this particular client is selling. So we're giving a lot more kind of value-added insight into this next level down in terms of, still isn't campaign performance, this is still more of a summary view of a kind of that next level down. So that includes drive time to store, location of stores, and things like that. All things that clients can kind of play around with and get some really useful some insights out of. And that's come from how we've deployed these explores and dashboards across these different clients. And then because we can kind of share best practice amongst our teams, we can kind of keep evolving these kind of pre-canned presentations of data. So something we might do for one particular client, we might say that has a lot of value in another similar, clothing retailer or similar. So an example of how that might be used in an Explorer is kind of layering these things up. So this is a kind of quite a simple example, but we start with a standard customer count, and then we've got the acquisitions, not the acquisition source. We've got the drive time to store. So we want people that are less than an hour from store, because this particular client find that's the most useful group for them. We look at the acquisition source, so we're filtering this on their original source of acquisition was a store purchase rather than online. And then because we've got this customer lifetime value metric from our predictive analytics product, we can kind of use this in quite an interesting way. So the current customer lifetime value is less than £500, but because we have a predicted lifetime value, we can look at where the predicted lifetime value is over £1,000. So these are basically high opportunity customers. So the current opportunity is relatively low. They haven't realised that opportunity just yet. So that's brought the total down, but this is a much more targeted use of the Explore. So where we create this insight, we want to translate it into action. So because it's embedded, we can take this segment of people and send it directly to the segmentation part of Contour, so it doesn't come out of the tool. So they've gone from an insight from the Explore, and in terms of the marketing automation context, there's the campaign management side of the tool, and there's the segmentation side of the tool. So everything's in one place. So that customer count, if I go into segments within Contour, I can see that the high value predicted customers, that's appeared in the product. So they can start using that straight away. So they can start building campaigns and targeting those people. So they've gone very readily from the data to the insight to the action. So that's quite a high-level summary of our journey and how we've kind of translated Looker within the Contour platform. Some of the results we've had. This has absolutely transformed the kind of conversations we have with clients. The fact that we've gone from just campaign-level reporting to this completely different data conversation has really been transformative. They want to give us more data. They want to employ more of our kind of consultative services, and it's really kind of just opened up a whole new world for us. As I've just shown, it's created this link between data and action. So rather than just presenting this rearview mirror of results, it's, right, okay, what can I do with that? What happens next? We've managed to completely embed the experience. So there's a familiarity because the client's already using Contour, and this whole experience has changed as a result of that. And most importantly for my boss, revenue streams. By pre-canning a lot of standard dashboards, that's like kind of one product offering, and then we can kind of create custom ones on top of that. Explorer is a kind of added value product, and this curated data experience really kind of elevates our proposition with our customers. In terms of where we're going next, we've still got work to do. We've probably been using Looker for 3 or 4 years in anger. So the main thing we'll be doing is expanding the data visualization. So we want to make data visualization more of a feature of Contour, so not just in the reporting context, but everywhere we present data within the product, it's Looker that's powering that, but also using some data visualization libraries that kind of bring the data a bit more to life for clients. It's leading us to grow our data-led integrations, so clients want more data because they can get more results and action from that, so it's opening up other conversations. It helps us bring our predictive and AI features to life. This is a big part of our marketing automation offering, but they have less value if they can't do anything with them, so it really helps that. And basically just creating more actionable data, so creating, as the title of my presentation says, analysts of marketers. So they might not feel that they have the skills or the experience to kind of do this level of analysis, but by creating a curated experience, we can kind of give them these jumping off points to do that. And obviously more revenue streams. So that opens up other opportunities for us, and there's more to come. But thanks very much.